Good evening, everyone. My name is Susan Marshall. I am the author of Mom's Gone Missing, When a Parent's Changing Life Upends Yours, and your host for these compassion chats. We meet the fourth Tuesday of every month at 6 o'clock Central in an informal environment where we come to listen to resources, help us understand the role of caregiving, to share stories with one another, and really to support and encourage each other. We're an informal bunch. So settle in, relax. We are recording the session. So I would ask if you would mute yourself while we have the initial chat, and then we'll open it up to questions and comments and anything you'd like to add with the story, what have you. I am delighted this evening to welcome our guest, Bobbi Linkemer. Bobbi is a writing coach, ghostwriter and editor, as well as the author of 27 books. Oh my goodness. In her 50-year career, she's written on hundreds of topics for a variety of publications and organizations for both public and private sectors. I've gotten to know Bobbi over the last, month or so, Bobbi?
Yeah.
We've had many, many chats. I'm delighted that she's joining us because she has lived the kind of the other side of the equation we've talked about in terms of caregiving. She has written a book, How to Age with Grace, Living Your Best Life in Your 70s, 80s, and Beyond, and writes about when do you stop working? When do you stop driving? When do you move? So Bobbi, welcome. We like to start with these chats with a little bit personal background. So give us a little bit of your story, and then what actually moved you to write this wonderful book, How to Age with Grace?
Well, the story starts years ago when I decided for no reason to become a writer. And I was 30. And it just, it was like being struck by lightning, like The Godfather. And once I made up my mind, I just kept doing it. And I had no reason to believe that I would succeed. I was a housewife with 2 kids, and I sold advertising space on the side. And it's been a long, really amazing career. I've just done everything in terms of nonfiction writing. And the last 10 or so books were on writing, some aspect of how to write a book, how to market the book, just anything that you could think of that has something to do with writing a book. And then I inadvertently retired. I was not expecting any of the things that happened. I mean, I was living in my condo, and this will probably sound familiar because you must know someone who has a similar story. So I was living in my condo, which I owned, and I had been working out of my home for 30 years and had a little business where I was taking care of clients and either writing their books or teaching them how to write their books or editing their books. And it was feast or famine. And there were times when it was fantastic. And there were times when I didn't know how I was going to make it through the month. And so suddenly I was packing up everything I owned and moving. I have 2 daughters, and one of them thought I was fine, and the other one thought I should be in an assisted living facility. And I have discovered as I thought about this why she thought I should be in an assisted living facility. And it wasn't because I needed all the assistance. It's that she was finding herself being a chauffeur and a delivery person for groceries and medication. And because I stopped driving, and I didn't really think that through. I went to a doctor and he said, you have neuropathy, and I would stop driving right away. Oh, okay. So I did without having any kind of a plan. So that was imposing on her a lot. So she found this wonderful place, and we went and looked at it. And the selling point was, look at all these nice people and you'll make 1 million friends. And so I was supposed to, one of the chapters in the book is where should you live and who decides? And I would have to say that I did not consciously decide all these things that happened one after another. So that was not a firm decision on my part. I should go to this place. So I was supposed to go to be evaluated for something, how much need I had or something. And COVID hit. And they slammed the doors and everybody slammed the doors. And suddenly I was living with this daughter who I get along with wonderfully. We love each other. We've been very close for years. And I loved it. But she wanted to live alone and finally told me that. And she lived in like this 3-story condo with a full apartment downstairs. And I'm thinking, you want to live alone? So the next surprise was that she and all her friends packed up everything I owned or gave it away or threw it out and loaded me and my belongings into a van and drove me to Tennessee, where daughter number 2 drove from Florida to Tennessee, and they made the big switch. Here's all her stuff. Here's the mom. Been wonderful having you. Bye. So daughter number 2 really was very welcoming. You can live here. We'd love to have you live here. I've talked it over with Alan. He'd love to have you live here too. So I'm living here. And in my wildest dreams, I could not have imagined moving to Florida and living here. So I didn't really plan the retirement. I didn't really plan to give up driving. I didn't really plan to live here. And so there've been just a tremendous number of adjustments. I'm not really sure how this plays into your need to talk about caregivers. One of the things I've been thinking about lately is when you have siblings who don't agree on how the parent should be cared for, how do you resolve that? Like if one of them thinks you should stay home and have somebody come and help you, like stay at home or something like that, and the other one thinks you should be committed, which is strong. How do you decide who's right or who is going to prevail? So my whole world went upside down. And I would have to say that I either was in a daze for the whole 2.5 years, or I have better coping skills than I thought I had, because I'm fine. And that doesn't mean it's been easy, because it hasn't. I mean, I have a chapter in the book that the one about where you should live. And when I get to the part about living with your children, I don't make a big case for it, because everything that you should do, we didn't do. You should have a conversation about what do they expect? What do I need? Do they have ways of doing things that they would like me to fit into? We didn't discuss anything. So the only way I found out if I was doing something wrong was to do something wrong.
So, it's fraught, as we have spoken a number of times. You write with such practicality and really a delightful sense of humor, but this was not an easy transition for you. And so what was your doctor said you had neuropathy and you needed to stop driving. And then it was inconvenience on the part of your daughter who was local taking care of you that
Well, she felt really, I guess it was inconvenient. I guess she felt that she didn't want to be responsible for me and driving around and playing chauffeur. And that whole relationship and she is complicated. Yes. I mean, mothers and daughters are a story in themselves. And that's all I had was daughters. So if I had sons, it might have been a different dynamic. So I'm living in this room. It's not a suite. And when they build a house, I'll have a little bigger room. And I'm having an office built in. It's got kind of a little carved out place, and California Closets is going to come in and do magic with your standard, just like everybody else's closet. It's no bigger than, I mean, it's this big. And somehow they're going to accommodate everything I wear in my all 4 seasons. And by the time I get through creating all the things to go in this room, it's going to cost a lot of money. And money is an issue, and I'm sure that you run into this issue in one way or another. I mean, I never thought I would retire because I never thought I could retire. And when I sold the condo, suddenly I had money. I mean, it was a small condo. It was, I must have doubled what I paid for it with what I got for it. And it was sold in a week for cash.
Wow.
So
Bobbi,
that really was a sign that it was meant to sell.
yeah, where was Bobbi? Where geographically was that? You're in Florida?
It's in St. Louis County, which is, St. Louis has a city that's here and a county that goes around it. And the city is not in the county. That has to be the only one in the country where the city is the stepchild. And the reason that they're separate is because the city didn't want to have to be responsible for the stepchild, the county, but the county grew up and turned out to be a princess. So they're not related to each other. And I was in St. Louis County, in West County, and it's a very segregated, racially divided city. And I'm from New York and Chicago, and I really didn't know that there was such a thing as you live here because the JCCA is here and your husband can roll out of bed and be on the handball court. And the African-American community is north and the German community is south and the Italian community is on the hill. And by the time I got it all straightened out, I was appalled, but I didn't really, that's the way it is in St. Louis.
Right. So as you relate the things that you talk about from, getting packed up and moved, one of the things that I really am interested in exploring with you is this notion of compassion for one another. Adult children genuinely are concerned for parents, right?
And mine are. There's no question.
Yep. And you want certainly to be safe yourself and not to be a burden on kids or anything like that. How would you recommend we begin the conversations that you wish now you would have had?
Well, if I'd been conscious, I would have said, wait, there's some stuff we have to talk about. I'm completely ready for end of life things with all the proper documents, and have discussed it with one daughter. And unfortunately, the daughter I'm living with, while she's wonderful, if I happen to be sick or fall on my face and bleed all over the floor, if I say, I need to tell you what I want, at the end of life. And if you're my durable power of attorney for healthcare, you really ought to know these things. No, I can't discuss that. Well, you have to discuss it. Well, it's all on that piece of paper. No, it's not all on that piece of paper. I mean, we need to talk about what's important to me. So fortunately, her husband is a healthcare provider. He's a physician's assistant in a hospital. So I'm just going to make him the representative for healthcare, along with the other daughter who can actually have the conversation, but is in another city.
Yeah. Well, and this is the thing that's so difficult for everybody concerned here. It's how do you even start the conversation? And how do you moderate, that's the right word, your kind of your tone of voice, your energy level, right? It's all intellectually, we get those things, but emotionally, when you're trying to hear and be heard, what do you do?
Well, not every older adult is ready to talk about end of life issues or has faced that we're going to die. I mean, this is a society that is so removed. We see it, it's on television, it's all over the place, it's in the news, and all these people are dying all around us, and they're dying violently, but we personally are not going to die. I mean, it's the strangest thing. I don't think they feel that way in all countries, but in this one, you would think that we're immortal. And so when you try to talk about it, it's depressing. It's sad. We shouldn't be talking about stuff like that. Well, you know, I just turned 85. We should be talking about stuff like that. But you know, how you are so in control, to answer your question or to try to, how you are in such control intellectually and emotionally that you could have this conversation intelligently and calmly. It would depend on your relationship with your kids and whether either one of them, if you have two or more, are capable of discussing it. I
You're
mean,
right.
with one of them, I say, promise me you'll pull the plug. And she says, well, promise me you will. Because she is not planning to go, if she got cancer, which one of her best friends has cancer, super fourth stage, just you can't even imagine. If that happened to my daughter, she would not go through the steps to get better. She would not do the chemotherapy. She would not do the radiation. And I have no idea what the other one would do because she can't have the conversation because it's sad and depressing.
You know, and it's interesting too, Bobbi, you're right about that. Depending on everybody's kind of frame of mind. In addition to that, with adult children, there are still sibling rivalries. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And each child has a different relationship with the parent. As I wrote in my book too, I have 5 siblings. We all had a different relationship and we really didn't understand what the other siblings had experienced, what they were thinking, what they were feeling. And grief manifests very, very differently as you're describing. One
Right.
daughter says, I'll pull the plug if you will. The other says, leave me alone, la, 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 don't want to talk about it. That's real, right? And yet we all want to help one another make our way through this very difficult chapter.
I think one of the biggest issues for me, and I don't think this is unique, is that I've been on my own. I've been divorced for 50 years, 51. And the reason I know that is because my ex-husband just celebrated his 50th wedding anniversary. So he, you know, out the door and met this woman and the rest is history. So that's a lot of independence. And you do not make money as a rule as a writer unless you're famous or you're wonderful or something about you sell a book and you make a whole bunch of money. But most of us just really got through the best we could. And you could have had the best reputation in the world, but that did not permit you to go to the gas station and the grocery store in the same week. So what occurred with this life turning upside down was that I have lost all of my independence. And I would say to anyone who's dealing with a parent, don't let that happen. You don't know how important that is. And they don't realize that they are taking it away from you.
Well, and so that we touched on this a little bit the other day when we were talking, Bobby. How do you then negotiate preserving as much of that independence and respect as you can while still making sure somebody's there if you fall or you have some help should you need it?
Well, there's no question that I would have help. And I am a fall risk. So I know that one night I was knocking on Leslie's door and saying, I'm really sorry to bother you, but I had a little accident and there's a lot of blood in the bathroom and I just couldn't get it all. So she leaps out of bed and it's a crime scene in the bathroom. It was, if they had taken me to the ER, they would have been arrested for elder abuse. And I had a black eye and I had a gashed forehead and they were sleeping through the whole thing. And I forgot what the question was. Yes, I don't know how you negotiate it because I haven't. I mean, you would think that I am having my second childhood. Did you eat lunch? Have you worked out today? And I have to have answers. I mean, if I don't work out, it's going to be really hard to explain why I didn't work out.
Oh, that's a level of management, shall we say, that
Very, just micro management,
which
mommy management. She's probably been waiting all her life to do this.
well, there are those dark, dark thoughts at times. But again, it's how do we support each other and allow this kind of thing? Well, to your point, if you don't have the conversation, it's really hard to negotiate anything, right? You go where you're told.
Well, not driving is a big part of this because I have essentially been in the house for 2 years. Unless somebody drives me somewhere. I mean, there was a moment in time when it looked like the pandemic was easing and restaurants were opening up. And so I actually went out to dinner and got to sit in the restaurant, but that was very brief. And if you don't drive, you don't go anywhere, you don't meet anyone. I mean, I really have not met anyone in the Jacksonville area. And so I'm making a lot of friends, but they're all online. And I'm not, going to a friend site and saying, looking for a friend. But, I'll meet someone like Susan who has a particular reason for contacting me and I'll fall in love. And, hopefully a friendship will grow out of that. The copy editor for my book is just one of the neatest people. And so we have this online correspondence. And there are several people like that. And their reality is that that's who I am able to meet.
I think you're just describing a lot of social interaction for the last 2 years, Bobbi. And so thank God we have Zoom and Teams and these kinds of things, which keeps you socially connected. So I want you to talk a little bit about the social aspect of maintaining your health, maintaining a positive attitude, which you do remarkably well.
Well, I did a lot of research for every aspect of this book. And one of the chapters is why you need a support system and how to build one and who is your support system. And if you're really fortunate, it's your family. And my family is really small. I've got 2 daughters, 1 sister, 1 niece, a son-in-law and a brother-in-law. And the son-in-law I really like. The brother-in-law, we don't love each other, but he's in Phoenix, so it's okay. And that is an amazing support system. They are there for me. And we are all there for each other. Friendship and having social interactions is important to your health. I mean, it really has an effect on how you feel. And if you're isolated, I think you're much more likely to get sick because isolation is bad for you, says someone who's been in house arrest for 2 years. I mean, it's isolating.
Yes.
So I go to the beauty shop, and I have done that throughout the pandemic. My sister didn't do that. And one day she woke up and down to here, she was gray and everything else was brown. So she whacked off all the brown, and she's adorable with gray hair, but I would not be. So I didn't do that. I can't even stress how important it is. And that's why it's particularly disturbing that I haven't met people. I think St. Augustine is a much more social atmosphere. We live in a very lovely subdivision. I think I have met 2 neighbors, and Leslie already knew them. So I haven't met anybody new. It's critical to your well-being. I mean, on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's what, 3rd?
Yep. Yeah. Well, and I just pause just for a second, Bobbi. We are now your family, right? And everyone who comes to these compassion chats finds this kind of a connection. And what I have appreciated about people who have joined us and have been our guests is the reality and the candor within which everybody speaks and really shares. But we're not kidding each other about, rose-colored glasses and any of this. That said, it's not doom and gloom, nor is your book. I found your book pragmatic and incredibly inspiring. So thank you for
that's good.
struggling.
I thought it was going to be really depressing when I wrote it. But it's partly my own experience when I'm talking about moving or driving or talking about going to the lawyer to see what documents you need. It's a lot of research because there's so much out there. Anything you want to know, you can find it and you can steal it. They don't care. I mean, you can find more information than you can possibly handle. And then every chapter has 2 interviews, or most of them do. One is with an older adult that is experiencing this, whatever. Like I've had a friend who told her kid she wanted to remain at home, and she was 95, and they figured out how to have people come in. I think it was called something about home. And so she had these people come in every day in the morning and take care of her and do whatever needed to be done. And she was happy as a lark. And she was the sweetest person I ever met. But I have a feeling that when she told her children, I want to stay here, they got it. I must have been a little too wishy-washy.
I do think part of it is your independence for so long, right? Those of us who have lived that way, we tend to think we're very self-sufficient. Thank you very much. And even when we fall and create a crime scene, it's like, don't worry about it. Just clean it up. I'll be fine. And realistically, now that you've lived this experience, was not pleasant, but realistically, your children did, your daughters did what they truly believed you needed.
Right.
And to continue to negotiate what those needs are going forward. You do a wonderful job of outlining the things that we need to be thinking about, the documents, the wishes.
I want to show you just in case you don't know about it. This is a fantastic document. It's called The 5 Wishes. And it originated in Florida. And it is a legal document. It is really, part of it is your living will. So you have it notarized, and the rest of it is kind of how I want to be taken care of at the end, how I want to be made comfortable, which you can't really make that legally binding, but you can certainly request 50s music when you're in hospice.
There you
So
go.
I requested that.
Okay.
And you can, I'm trying to think, on the back of it, I think it tells you where you can get it. Just going through it with either your spouse, if you have one, or your children, or any kind of a partner in your life, even if you don't fill it out and you don't have it notarized and you don't use it as a legal document, it really makes you think. Who do I want to take care of me? How do I want to be cared for? Do I want to be, do I want a funeral? Do I want a memorial service? Do I want to be cremated? And what I'm discovering is if you want to be cremated, you don't just say, I want to be cremated. You really have to do something about it, like find a company that does that. And I don't think they're just prohibitively expensive. So I guess what I'm not saying is that you, and I'm not sure that I have been, you need to be proactive about your own life, or you will lose the independence, as I have lost a great deal of mine. Somehow I have come through this pretty positive, and I don't know how I did that. Because it's not my nature. I'm not Susie Sunshine. I'm not a Pollyanna who can see something good in everything. I am the glass is more than half empty. It's empty. But somehow I changed everything, including my attitude. And I am not a religious person, but I read a lot about Buddhism because it's so practical, and it tells you exactly what to do if you're, if you're in a situation that's terrible. How do you deal with it? If you're losing something that you never wanted to lose, or there's something you want that you can't get, what's the solution to that? And it's not religious. It's really very philosophical. The way it came to the West, it's a philosophy, because you can't really transpose Eastern cultures. You can bring meditation and you can bring this philosophy over here and then sort of meld it into the Western way of thinking, which is very different from the Eastern way of thinking. And it almost goes against our grain. It's kind of slow down and go with the flow while we're moving quickly and talking quickly and trying to decide where the flow is going to go.
Well, you have written for us, Bobbi, really a handbook on how to make decisions, how to involve your loved ones, whether it's children, spouse, close friends, what have you. And I really want to emphasize to everybody here and to those who will join us and find you in the archives, How to Age with Grace truly is practical, it's inspiring, it is so comprehensive. So Bobbi, thank you for sharing the book. Thank you for sharing yourself. I'm going to open it up to questions and comments. I salute your courage in coming and talking with us, and your delightful sense of humor.
Thank you.
So questions, comments, stories, unmute yourself, please. And here's Bobbi.
And know that I don't have the answers to your questions, but I'll chat. And I have lots of stories.
So I have a story that was prompted by some of the things you were saying, Bobbi. So I, having worked in healthcare for 30 some years, some years back, my mother-in-law in her early 90s had to give up her car. And she had, my husband obviously is one of her children, as long as another son and another daughter. And we're sitting around a Thanksgiving table, and she had just had to give up her car because she'd had one accident and the writing was kind of on the wall. And so she was struggling with that for all the logical and human reasons that you've described tonight eloquently. So thank you for that. And in the process of this conversation, she kind of threw out a line in the midst of this family conversation, which was, I've really had such a hard time adjusting because I've lost my independence. Now, in that moment, her children weren't overly excited about getting into that conversation. They could feel where it was going to go offline quickly, and they were uncomfortable with it. And so they had to go fill a potato bowl, or they had to do something else, and the table started to thin out a little bit. Of course, having worked with seniors for so many years, I'm interested, I'm engaged. It's just what I do. And so, and she knew that. She used to say things in front of me that she wouldn't when I wasn't there, apparently, because she knew I'd engage her and I'd ask questions and would give her a chance to express herself, whereas others were uncomfortable, as you've said so many times tonight in different ways. So I said to her, so help me understand, what is it that you're missing? What does independence look like to you? And she had troubles getting at it, which is reasonable because no one had asked her that question before. No one was going near that question before. And so I can't remember exactly how I did it, but I reframed the question and then ended with, so once again, what is that? What does independence look like? What's the picture in your head when you say I lost my independence? And her answer was so profound in its absolute simplicity. And she said, when I'm hungry for an apple, I can't get one. Isn't that just profound?
Wow.
It's not, I can't do this, can't do that, I can't, what it was, I just want a darn apple. And I can't go get an apple. That, I think that just hit me between the eyes. And I use that in a lot of the talks that I give to seniors to point out, it's not, we think we know what losing your independence looks like because we talk about it and we're in the industry and we've had lots of conversations about it. So we get it. I can't get it until I'm living it, but I got closer to it that evening when she put it so simplistically, but so raw.
Mhm.
I just want an apple. So what you were saying tonight was resonating to me on so many levels with not only clients I've had, but family members and other things that are going on in my life. It's a challenge when you lose your car, and I can appreciate that. I can't understand it, but I can say you have my gratitude for your honesty, for your forthrightness, for your openness tonight, because what you shared tonight gave me a laugh, which I needed, but also enlightened me in so many ways. So what a joy you are. And thank you for sharing yourself with us tonight.
Oh, thank you.
Very sweet, Adele. Thank you. Lucia, Paula, Jim?
Sure. And I think I was listening to your earlier story with the writer's filter on a little bit. I'm also a writer.
Oh.
I do some ghostwriting myself. But like as you were kind of detailing the people in your life and your support system and how this person does that and that person does that, like everybody's kind of assuming their roles and not one person can do it all. And, everybody has their strengths and, how they all want to help, right? And all done out of love. But how does that work in execution, I guess? And I know I heard that from Susan as well.
Well, you have to keep remembering that you're loved, which we don't think about a lot. On my 80th birthday, the clan assembled. Both of my daughters and my niece and my sister and my son-in-law. And Leslie, the one I live with, is just a marketing genius. And she put together, with help, I'm sure, a 50s rock and roll party with costumes and music and t-shirts that all matched that said Bobbi rocks. We jitterbugged. She had all these little presents. I mean, it was just quite amazing. And I said, this is going to last me till I'm 90. And since 85 hit in the middle of the pandemic, it is going to have to last me till I'm 90. It was, I mean, if I ever doubted anybody's love, that event said, open your eyes, look how much they care. So you have to, I guess I, as well as everybody else, have to keep that in the forefront of my mind so I don't forget. And there's this new thing that people don't say goodnight or goodbye anymore at the end of a phone conversation. They say, I love you. So you don't really know if they honestly love you or if that's the new goodbye. But I'll take it. I mean, Leslie goes to bed every night and calls out, hey, Mom, I'm going to bed. I love you. So it's nice, whether it's, part of the new shtick or not.
It is. I tell my kids, because my husband is not effusive that way. And I said, don't forget, whenever you see the porch light on, that's his way of saying, I love you.
Yeah, they have like code.
Well, and to be able to hear that, right, and truly take it in, I think is a gift on both sides of that offering.
It's really interesting how they've, within the family structure, have created relationships. Like they weren't happy with the sibling they got, so they got another one. And with Terry, my oldest daughter, she chose my niece. And they talk every day, and there's like 12 years difference in their ages. And Leslie chose her stepsister, and they talk every day, and they kind of look alike and act alike and dress alike. And so it's just interesting how if you're not happy with the support system you got, you can make a new one. And I think that's probably just as true for us. I met a woman at the hairdresser. Very nice person, very bright. And she's in a situation where her sister is beginning to show the signs of dementia, and they don't know if it's Alzheimer's, but apparently their mother had Alzheimer's. So they have had each other all these years. They've lived in the same city. They've been very close. And her niece wants her mother to come to California. So here we are in Florida, and the niece lives in California, and she wants to take care of her mother. So she wants her mother to move to California so she can take care of her. And for years, her mother's been saying, no, I can't leave my sister. But at this point, I think she realizes she has to go. So the lesson behind that is that eventually you just have to realize when it's time to do something, even though it's something you don't want to do. So here is the sister who is very open about the fact that she doesn't have a lot of friends because she didn't need a lot of friends because she had her sister, which I get because my sister is my best friend, even though she lives on the other side of the country. So she's out looking for friends. And she decided I would be a good one to have in her arsenal. So she has been calling and, being conversational and being very open and honest and candid. And I need new friends as much as she does. She's just really aggressive about going out and finding them. So I guess another thing that's coming out of this conversation for me is that there are a million stories in the Naked City, and they all may have a thread of commonality. We're all getting old, and we're doing it however we do things. If we're lucky, we can age with grace, but that does take some work. I mean, you don't just, you don't keep the body ahead when you were 50, when you're 80, because you've got to move it. But we're all sharing just this thread, but then we're individual, and we're so, what we're facing, it's like nobody ever got old before. It's like when you have a baby, nobody ever had a baby before. You're the first person to give birth to a baby. Well, in this case, you're the first person who ever got old and saw this and saw the wrinkles and where the hell did they come from? And I never noticed those before, really, unless I turn my head. So I'm not turning my head. So that could make us more empathetic and compassionate to other people when you realize that they're going through a version of what we're going through.
Absolutely.
It's different because they're different.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that, because we only know what we know. And I think, to your point, we assume that what we know is what everybody else knows.
Mhm.
And in fact, everybody else knows a little bit different thing, has a different experience, which is why we really enjoy these chats, because we're learning from each other. And I like to think we're all broadening our suite of coping capabilities.
I think that's true. I wish I'd been more forthcoming, but they opened their home to me, and they didn't have to.
Right.
And they said, we're happy to have you live with us. And they bought a desk and a bookcase, because they knew the two things I would have to have are a desk and a bookcase. And they bought an easel, and they set up an art corner in the middle of their dining room. And, that is very generous. So while I'm bitching about losing my independence, I could remember how generous they've been and are being.
That's lovely. Absolutely. I want to be sensitive to everybody's time. If you have a question or a story, a comment for Bobbi, please.
Or if you think I was off the mark on something, tell me.
Well, I don't know how we could do that, Bobbi, because you're sharing what you lived. We can't, well, you know what, I say that we can't tell you, but I have brothers who say, well, that's not really what you think. Okay. So, thank you. Thank you so much. You've made a whole group of new friends here.
Well, that's lovely, because I need you.
Yes, and we will have you on my website, susanamarshall.com. As soon as the video is recorded and edited, I will make sure you have that link to share with your community. I have a sense this is going to bring you some new friends.
That's good.
Just have a sense.
That's good.
So again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you all for being with us this evening. Join us next month, March 22nd, 6 o'clock Central, right here on Zoom.